Hello, and on the gaming table today, we're taking a look at playing some To the Strongest. Now, this is not a game I've played before, but my friend Kim has figures and the rules for this, so we decided to throw things on the table and give it a go. So here we are just getting set up. I have a kind of a Seleucid-themed army here. I've got a couple of wings of infantry with heavy and light troops, including some elephants, and a third wing, which is all cavalry. Kim just has two wings, but they're quite large, and they're Gallic forces, so we'll see how they play out against each other here. Now, if like me, you've not played To the Strongest before, it's a grid-based game, so there's no rulers or measuring sticks here. You're doing everything on a grid, which is marked on the surface here. Kim's got it marked with little tufts, which you can just see on camera here, and we're moving within those grid squares. It also uses a card activation mechanic, so basically you take a deck of cards 1 to 10, and then you're just drawing cards and the numbers are deciding, do you get to act? And when you fight, do you hit the enemy? Do they save against that hit? And so on. Quite a nice little mechanic. So here we are, we've both had one turn each, and I've been moving up a little bit more on my left. And after Kim has a bit of a command failure here and doesn't get to move many of his troops very far at all, you can see here that I'm starting to develop a flank attack at the bottom of the screen here. With my cavalry wing, I'm going to try and wipe out Kim's flank here and then get into him from the side. Because I outnumber him in cavalry, that should be achievable, and we'll see how it plays out. So just a pretty basic tactic, a turning maneuver. At the top of the screen, my own right flank is somewhat weak, and so I'm not moving that forward because I don't want to run into all those balls on the other side there. Again, in his third turn, Kim didn't have much luck with activations here, didn't get most of his main line moving forward. And so in my turn, I really pushed hard on this flank down here, and I actually managed to take out the first casualty of the game. I took out one of the light horse that was down here. And you can see I'm really pushing hard to get into the flank at the bottom. It was becoming pretty obvious what I was trying to do, but yeah, I think anyone could spot it from here, right? So in Kim's following turns, he starts to try to refuse the flank, as you'll see shortly, to protect himself with some heavy infantry. But that was still okay. Kim might have interior lines, but I'm kind of enveloping, and I can probably get some local numerical superiority here. As you can see, To the Strongest is a pretty fast play game. It goes pretty quickly, things move pretty quickly, and turns turn over quite rapidly as well. Easy to make decisions, and you're not worrying about measuring, so that's pretty good. So in the next turn, you can see Kim's moving up and starting to get some of his left wing into a position to actually threaten my main line. And then later in the turn, here I start really turning this line around at the bottom of the screen, getting the units facing the right way, turn them right, and now we're going to start to try and get into the flank here. But you can see Kim has already refused the flank with some of his heavy infantry, so we'll see how we go against those later on. Also, I moved my center up a little bit. I just didn't want to create a gap between my center and my left flank, as it were, just to make sure there's no gap there that can be exploited and that nothing can kind of sneak through and get into the flank of my main infantry line there. On the right, I'm still refusing there. I'm just not trying to engage, trying to keep the distance at the moment, but not creating any gaps there either. In his next turn, Kim moved up on his left, and then he had another command failure on the right after getting a little bit of the way through that wing, so not so good there. And then I started to try and hammer home this flank attack. So moving in, trying to take out these light horse and get into the infantry that's there. Also, in my center, I started using my missile units to take lots of shots into the larger groups of the Gallic warbands, trying to break them up, cause some damage, things like that. And I did the same thing at the top on the right. I thought, let's go in, move in, and shoot first, and see if we can cause some damage before they get stuck into us in melee. Kim got stuck in with his warbands on the left flank here, so managed to move up with one of his big warbands and knocked out some of my light troops, so that's starting to break down that flank. I kind of expected that. I thought at some stage I'm going to lose there, but I just need to beat him more in the middle and on the bottom of the screen here, my left, and then I should be okay. But anyway, Kim did that, and then he had a big command failure in the middle, so that turned things back to me to have a go. So here I tried to take advantage of the weak points, engaged in a lot of missile fire, tried to take fights I thought I could win against units that were getting a little bit disordered. And in the middle of the field, I managed to take out one of the warbands that had been damaged by missile fire, and that left one of my units with kind of an open line straight through towards the enemy camp. So I thought, right, I'm going to have to take that at some stage, and so we'll see that play out soon. At the bottom of the screen, the cavalry wings doing their job, they're getting stuck in, and so we just need to start causing some casualties down here. One thing about the game, as you can see, lots of cards on the table as play goes along, and depending on what you use, some people use dice, not cards, it does take away from the visual appeal a little bit. We talked about using mini cards, like much smaller cards perhaps, but yeah, there's different ways you could do that, maybe to maintain a little bit more visual appeal, but overall, for a game, it does its job. So here Kim's left wing was getting stuck into mine, and he managed to turn his big warband, so now it's facing towards the bottom of the screen, so he's starting to flank me up there. However, I'm still well in the fight. Things aren't going too badly up there. I'm causing a bit of damage, and I can keep him tangled up there, I think. Back on my turn, I'm engaging a lot with all of my units, but for the majority of cases, although I'm getting lots of activations, the combat results aren't actually coming out. I'm not actually hitting, or Kim is saving against a lot of the hits, so not a lot of damage being done. However, one unit in the middle there you can see goes streaking through the enemy lines towards the enemy camp. There's only some light horse in its way, and they fall back towards the camp. So let's see if I can get through them, take the camp, and get the victory points, which will pretty much ensure that I win the game. At this stage in the game, Kim confessed he wasn't feeling too confident about things. He was trying to get stuck in with his units, although my right flank at the top of the screen there was holding up against the warbands that were trying to turn it. I managed to take out another unit up there, I think, which was causing problems for his command. His general had to relocate, and that affected things like rerolls, but he was still trying to push as much as he can. I was just managing to defend against a lot of it. At the bottom of the screen, continuation of what was happening before. I was still getting lots of activations. I was still getting a lot of attacks going on. However, they weren't really causing any damage. So kind of a delaying action here on Kim's part. And he'd managed to get another unit, I think it was chariots, back through the line, back towards the camp, and they were replenishing with missiles to try and fend off my unit that had broken through. I actually forgot to activate them in one of my turns, which was a mistake, because maybe they could have beaten down the horse that were there, but I completely forgot that they were there. So far behind enemy lines were they that I kind of lost sight of them. And it was at this stage that my phone basically ran out of battery, so I had to stop recording. I couldn't get the last turns in. But strange things happened. We kept fighting away. I kept not killing off units, and I couldn't kill that light horse that was defending the camp. They actually fired missiles back at me and managed to eliminate that unit of mine that was threatening them. I got another unit of cavalry through there, and then they got eliminated by missile fire as well. So I had two goes at taking out the camp, and light unit missile fire defeated them both. In other parts of the battlefield, we were both getting very exhausted commands. It actually limited how much we could attack. And so at the end, this is kind of how things had positioned themselves when I, unfortunately, lost the battle and the Gauls won the day. So just a quick overall tour of the battlefield at the end here. On my right, the Gallic left, I was still holding off the flanking attack here, although my wing was exhausted, which means they couldn't initiate combat. They were just on the receiving end. They were holding up though. In the center, I was also exhausted, and units were kind of fighting away at each other here. Eventually, Kim would have broken through here, I think, and might have had a go at my camp. And then at the top, my cavalry wing was still able to engage right up until the end, but the missile fire from the light troops defending the camp took out enough of my units there that I lost that command as well. I lost that wing, and so with that, that lost me the game. And so Kim and I had a lot of fun playing this one out. Lots of swings back and forth as the fortunes changed, and a very fast game. Only took us a little over 2 hours to play the whole thing out start to finish, even with checking some rules as we were going along at different times. And also lots of turns on both sides. We both got a lot of turns in, so there was a lot of decision making going on throughout the game as well. But anyway, a nice game. I quite like it. I might have some more games with Kim in the future. But if you found this interesting, maybe go and check it out yourself. Apart from that, thanks for watching, and we'll see you again real soon.